Hello and welcome to this class in C programming. In this first segment, I'm going to give you some context for the class and how you should be using these video presentations. First of all, there's a prerequisite for this class. It assumes that you have some background in programming. This might be a programming concepts course, or some high school classes in programming, or some learn on your own experience with computer programming. It starts from the beginning of C programming, and it's going to go fairly quickly for people who have never seen anything like this before. The fastest way to learn to program a computer is to jump in and program and to watch other people program. So that's one of the advantages of this medium. I can demonstrate programming to you and then give you exercises and so on. I've taught this particular class in C programming dozens of times before, so I already know where the difficult parts are and I can help you through those. So our objective for this semester-long course is to be knowledgeable and practiced in all the significant parts of the C programming language. It's kind of a tall objective. We're going to use Microsoft's Visual C++ development environment, the Express edition, and I'll do the demonstrations in the 2008 version. If you already have installed the 2005 version, that's fine, you can use that one. And this is free for you, this development environment, and you must have it. So your machine must look like my machine, and you'll follow along with the demonstrations and do your exercises in the same environment that I do. That also implies that this is a Microsoft Windows machine that you must be using. This is not going to work on a Macintosh. You can't run this Microsoft product on a Macintosh. If you don't have Visual C++ development environment on your machine, go to Appendix A in these video segments, and it's a very quick download and install, and it's also free from Microsoft. So an explanation of how to do that is in Appendix A. When you're using these video lectures, you have a PC in front of you, so you have your laboratory, and you have me in front of you, so you have your lecture as well. And it's an ideal environment for this kind of online learning where you don't need to go to a classroom. So pretend you're in a classroom. Discipline yourself as though you were going to a class. Take notes. A notebook, it's so simple to say, less than $1. And it will make all the difference. It's your anchor into your progress through the class. Have your Visual C development environment also running at the same time, and you can flip back and forth between your lecture and your lab. It's very important that the exercises that are demonstrated are also duplicated by you. You won't forget them. I'm going to make these PowerPoint slides that you're looking at available to you, and I kind of advise that you print those out and make notes beside them. It's a good way of tracking your progress. You also will need to remember, this is a semester-long class, you're going to have to remember these things 4 months from now. Note-taking is kind of critical for being able to do that. It's up to you how you want to learn this, but this is a big indicator of success if you can take notes along the way. And I want to point out right from the very beginning that problem solving is different from understanding the language. It's kind of like understanding the vocabulary of a language versus being able to express something. So we have two kinds of skills. One is understanding the language, and one is being able to use the language. Hopefully that distinction will become clear. This also should accompany a textbook in C or vice versa, however you want to think about it. Reading a book is somewhat different than having someone explain it to you, even if it's me on this video. not in person explaining it to you. Those two things should be complementary. So as I promised, we're going to start programming right away. And here is the first C program that we're going to enter into the development environment. All it does is print out hello world, and you'll get used to all of the syntax, which is how to write the language, the braces and the parentheses, and also in this first example, the mechanism for creating a C project, entering a C program, and running it. So this is not an interesting C program, but the mechanism for getting a C program to run is the interesting part. So let's go immediately, and I will launch the development environment, and I'll start right from the very beginning, and you can follow along with me step by step to create a C project and enter a C program. So what I've done now is I've launched the Visual C++, and a start page comes up, and you can just close that. So now we have our working environment. Yours might look just slightly different, but it shouldn't be too much different from this. Now we're going to go step by step through creating a new C project from scratch. So we'll say File, New, and we're going to create a project first. Now we're going to create console applications. So we're going to click on Win32 console application, and I'd like you to, right from the beginning, organize your work. So I've made a new folder on my C drive called C Programs, where I'm going to save all the programs that I work on throughout this course. The other thing that we have to do is give this project a name. So I'm going to call this project Hello World. And that's almost all we have to do to make the project, but there is one more thing. When we say OK here, we're going to be asked for if we want to change application settings. And we do. In only one place. We want to create an empty project. So this development environment is ready to do a lot of stuff for us, and as beginners we need to tell it, no, don't do any of that because it'll be really confusing. So we're going to make an empty project and say finish, and the development environment will now show us that we have a project called Hello World, and we have 3 folders in this project. We're only going to use one. We're going to use the source files folder, and that's where we're going to put our C files, our C programs. So right click on source files and say add a new item. These are the options. We're going to pick a C++ file, but when we give it a name, we're going to choose a name that ends with .c. So this makes it a C file, not a C++ file. So I'm just going to call it hello.c because I'm not very creative right now. If you're wondering about the difference between C and C++, C is a subset of C++. So you don't find a C compiler very much anymore. You find a C++ compiler and you only use part of it. And the way that we're going to learn C by using part of the C++ compiler is to just be sure that we name our files with the extension .c. It will cause you some problems if you allow it to default to .cpp. So now in the development environment we have this area where we're going to type in our C program, and the one that we saw on the slide looked like this. We're going to include the standard io.h and include the standard lib.h. You don't know exactly what those are used for yet, but for now, until we get to the part where that gets explained correctly, we're just going to put that in our program. And the editor helps you, it indents for you. So just try to make your program look the same as the one on the slide. So this program will output hello world to the user, and then it will pause. So the purpose of this pause, system pause, is just so that the program, the console, doesn't go away too quickly, so that we actually get to see the result of the program. Okay, so we've typed in this program now. We have hello.c, and the little asterisk here indicates that the program has not yet been saved, but we don't really have to save it. It will save by itself when we do a compile. So we're going to compile this program, and if we got some compile time errors, they will show up down here. And it's kind of unfortunate that I didn't make any mistakes on this one, and it compiled correctly. So once you get good at this, you won't use the menus. You can use F7. So look at the top of your keyboard and hit F7, and that will compile your program and show you the compile time errors, if any. Okay, and luckily it said one succeeded. If I had made a compile time error, so for example, I didn't have a semicolon there, when I try to compile this program now, it will tell me that one failed. And we have to look into this in this window and find out where is the error message. So one of the lines in here will have an error, the word error on it. There it is there. And it says missing semicolon before close brace. So that's a pretty good error message. It knows the syntax error that we made. Some of the error messages that the compiler will give you are not as helpful as that one. For example, if we made a mistake with this double quotes, there was supposed to be a double quote there. Now we get a whole bunch of errors. We get new line in constant, pause is an undeclared identifier, and some warnings, and then another error missing parentheses before string. So these ones won't be all that helpful. It might as well just say, I'm confused now, I don't know what you've done. The way to find your compile time errors is to look in the list of errors, go to the first one that says error and double click on it. And the compiler does a pretty good job of pointing at the line where it thinks the error occurred. So there's the little pointer that it puts in, and it actually tells you that what it thinks is wrong with that line is new line in constant. All of these remaining errors were caused by the first error. So fix the first one and then hit F7, and it will maybe fix all of the errors. So this is your first C program. Make a project. Make sure that you check empty project as it's being created, and then create a .c file where you'll put in your C program. Okay, once your program is compiling, when you have one succeeded, then we can run the program. And the easiest way of doing this is to hit F5. So we're going to run our programs in a debugging environment. It doesn't make that much difference. It just helps us to find the mistakes. So this is what the program does when it runs. Not too much. It prints out hello world, and this is the pause. Press any key to continue. It allowed this window to stay here while we have a look at what the output was from the program. So it's very important now. Get your first C program running. Follow these step by step, because in every subsequent segment you're going to have to create and enter C programs. Okay, so the building and running of the C program, which we looked at in the development environment. I'm sure that unless you're very unusual, you typed some things wrong and you got compile time errors or syntax errors. So the syntax of the language is the rules of how to write it so that it's correct English, not correct English, correct C. And the comparison of syntax rules in English is if you put a comma in the wrong place or a question mark where you wanted a period, those would be rules of syntax in English. And in formal languages like C programming, there's no discussion about whether it's correct or not. It's either correct or it's not correct. So a formal language has formal rules of syntax, and when you make a mistake with the rules of syntax, you get a compile error. And you just get to know these compile errors. You could sit down and memorize all of the things about the syntax right now, but that would be a really boring and tedious way of learning this. So we're going to go along and look very closely at code that works, and you'll eventually stop typing those syntax errors. And our program output in this course will be on a console window. Eventually in the class we'll write output into files, but for now our output will be on a disguised DOS window that pops up, as we saw in the development environment, and we call that the console. All C programs start with a function called main. So that's the entry point of execution into a C program. And for the first several weeks in this class, all of our work will be done inside of the main function. So it'll get repetitive. We'll create a main function and start from there on each project. And I hope you've done this already, and if you're trying to cheat, it won't work. So get to Appendix 1 and set up Visual C++ Express on your machine. At the end of each segment, we'll have a summary of what was covered, and this is the summary from segment 1. Syntax, we just discussed that. Rules for writing the computer program in a particular language. And errors in syntax are compile time errors. The output from the program is information that originates in the program and winds up on the console window, or eventually output into a file. And at this point, I'm going to say this only 4 times now, you have to get a C program running, because everything that we do after this, your understanding of it depends on you typing a C program and having it work. And I also advise that you print these out as you go along so that you can put them with the slides, and it's a great way of having something that you can review. I'll see you in the next segment.